Hey plastic model builders, welcome back. This is part 2 of the A-18F Super Hornet. What you are seeing here is our last episode. We painted some stuff, instrument panels. We got the wheels right here. We put our straps on our seats, put a decal on the instrument panel, fun stuff, and as well we painted the cockpit and all that good stuff with our chairs. Anyway, we're going to cut out some parts. So we're going to start with our fuselage top right here. Got a bunch of little spaces here. You got to be careful with how you're cutting this out. Don't want to take off too much plastic, all that good stuff. Got our fuselage side. There's going to be 2 of these. Here's one here. Got our intake scoops. Got 2 of these. And of course our afterburners. Those are directly below it. So we want to get both of those. We've got our top vents right here. 2 little thingies to clip on each one of these. Quick and simple. Not too bad. Got our bottom fuselage. Lots of little sections here connected to the wing. Be careful with that you don't take any excess plastic off where you don't need to. Got 2 on top over there. Got some right here by the wheel well. And of course 1 in the back. So here's that other fuselage side. I'm going to cut that off. Got our exhaust nozzles right here. 2 of those. Little plastic piece here that came off. Got our compressor blades. Going to be 2 of those. Get each of those. Then we have our front fuselage halves. Right and left. As you can see here, just slowly go around those. Of course, you're going to have to take care of all that extra stuff that gets cut off. Got our wing tips. 2 wing tips, of course. Wouldn't be an airplane without wing tips. Then we've got our intake duct bottoms. Got 2 of those. So cut those out. We got our nose top on that same side, but this is actually the nose bottom. I'm sorry about that. Cut out now. These are the intake duct tops before you cut out the bottoms. So here is the nose top. We got a small little bottom vent right there. Our stabilizers, cut out a couple of those. Do some of the pivot rods right here. Get all the pivot rods. Go back to our stabilizers and we will get our vertical tails. So that's it for cutting out some of the parts. All right, once these vertical tails are cut out, time to start sanding some stuff. We're going to sand this down right here. This is for the cockpit so it sits nice and flush. Figure I'd show you that. That way you can see what kind of work has to be done. We've got our stabilizers right here. You're going to have to cut a little bit off of the tips of these. If you don't do that, these will not fit properly into the pivot rod once you glue those together. And then you're also going to have to sand down the extensions on those because otherwise it's a really tight fit. So you see right here how those fit in there. There's a notch on one thing that goes perfectly into the tail fins right there, the stabilizers. So we've got this one area here where you see one side has a notch, the other doesn't. So we need to create a notch. So I'm just going to put some markings here. I lined these up the best I could. As you can see, etching it out. Put our mark there. My big head's in the way as usual. Really, it's not a big head. I still wear a toddler-sized hat. Don't tell anybody. Anyway, scrape some of that away. And this will fit perfectly once it comes time to complete the model. So we've got our top vents that we are going to glue in. 2 of those, 1 on each side. Easy process. You can see the little vents right there. Get all around the sides, and this just fits perfectly just like that. Doesn't have to look too pretty. They just have to get in there. Anyway, we'll get the other side. You see it has a little placeholder for that. It's perfect. Alright, so now we've got this is the canopy top that we're about to fit into here. Fits rather nicely. It goes right on top and it fits also in the side. So put our glue on there. Get it on those pins. And I'm sorry, it's the cockpit deck. I knew it had a name, just couldn't remember what it was. We are going to put this cockpit deck in. You see the pins, they will fit properly into the boxes, as we call them in the drilling industry, since that's what I'm in. Box and pins, I know I say that term all the time. Anyway, that's them. So just press it down, get it in there good, just like that. Secure the sides with some tape. I don't care how you do it. You want this to glue nicely together. Ignore my fingerprint as well. That's not that big a deal. Anyway, so there we go. Cockpit deck is in. That's hard to say. Secure the bottom vent. We're going to glue that in through the underside of the plane. I'm holding it by the tip there. Just get a little glue around that. Let it dry for 20 seconds, whatever, you know, however the directions call for it, and just press that in there. And that's how it goes, perfectly like that. Now comes installing the cockpit. We've got a box here and a big box here. See where I sanded everything down? Make sure those holes are filled. Put a little extra glue on that so it can rest. Get some on the pin. Get the outside of that pin, even though it's got a hole in there, that's going to fit perfectly in that other circle that you saw. So there we go. Get a little extra glue. Just press it down. Make sure it fits evenly and is tight to the base of the bottom of the fuselage. Some model making madness, you know, make it look pretty. So we have our bottom intake ducts and our top intake ducts. Going to glue all this together. It's going to go white in the inside. Maybe you could paint it. You might want to remove that little registration, the circle from the molds. If not, it's whatever. You'll have to eventually put some glue on the insides of these as well to get rid of that seam line. I don't know of any other way to do it other than to fill with super glue. That's what I did. So we're going to attach the intake scoops now to the sides of the fuselage, as they call them, because that's what it is. They just go on the side. You see little vents there. Go all around here. We got our little pins. Now these are the pins right here. Big ones, tall ones, and small ones, and little ones. Side ones, front ones, back ones. Anyway, you get the picture, right? So put the scoops right there. I never painted the insides. They are what they are. And here's the other side. Two sides, a right and a left. There we go. Perfect. Here's our pivot rod. As I said, you may want to clean up the insides of those. Might make it easier to fit in the pins into the pivot rod from the rear stabilizers. So just some advice. Might want to do that. Anyway, there's some pins on the pivot rod. Go all the way around the edges. Get the pins nice and gluey. And just place it face down right here inside the holes of the other top pivot rod. And there we go. I like it. Model making madness. Make it look pretty. Anywho, here's our two fuselage halves. We're going to glue these together. Not a lot of glue, not a lot of spaces. You got this area right here and around the nose cone. Other than that, you don't put any glue anywhere else. So each one of these has a little pin, and the top one has a box. Then get the glue in all of those, just like this. Now we are ready to glue these together. Just make sure you spread that glue around really well. You know, you want them on. The other sides don't get anything because that's where the wheel well is. So it just looks like it will, but it doesn't actually meet up with anything other than the bottom of the fuselage. So here we go. Put this on top of the other one. Make it look pretty. Model making madness again. So we'll let these dry. Set them aside. We're going to put the intake into the plane now, the completed intake. We're not going to put on the turbine fans yet because it's not necessary. We still have to paint those. So just go around these edges as you see us doing and place this face down. Make sure the seams are good, that they're well hidden. Let it dry for a little bit and we can place it into the plane eventually. They slide in. It's kind of strange, but that's how it works. Here's a different shot. So you see how that looks there. Attach the nose top and the bottom. Right here, this is the bottom one. You can tell by how it looks. It's got little areas there where I guess there will be a vent and probably some antennas. Go all the way around the edge. This part fits fairly decent. Quite nice fit. You just kind of pop it in place and it just magically stays with all the glue. So there we go. Get the side done. Very simple task. Hopefully you don't mess it up. There you see me sliding that into place. Make sure it lines up with the other seams and the bottom. Not just kind of press it tight, hold it down. Make sure it's in straight. So let's put in the top right here of the fuselage portion from the halves that we created. Go around the edges, get the flat portion right here, go around this little bit, and of course the front here of the actual top. This is where the gun is. We'll paint that eventually as well. You can paint it ahead of time or wait till a later date. Probably just easier to wait till a later date to do it. Now you see we'll have to put in some filler there. So now we're getting down to the end of this. We have our landing gear. We're going to half assemble the landing gear. That way we can paint this and paint the wheel wells at the same time without the gear in them. So we're going to assemble the gear, but not actually install that. We're going to fake install it. Got our sway braces. Those are going to only go into the tops, not actually into the plane, because we don't want them to be glued yet. We want to save it. We're just trying to get everything in position. All right, so we'll cut out the braces. We'll cut out these springs right here, the shock springs. Be careful. As you can see, it's fairly thin up at the top there. You don't want to break anything, go slow. And of course, we have our little hooks, our eyes for tying down the airplane when the conditions are bad outside. So put a little dab of glue right here. Notice the orientation of how these tail hooks, these, not a tail hook, but tie down hooks go. You see the hook is basically facing downward. They're at a slight angle. That's how you do it. 4 of these in total. Comes with 2 extras, probably for the front of the aircraft landing gear. They'll probably go on. Anyway, let's put on this front spring. Have a little area right here to load it down onto. Press it in, and then make sure it's even. You might have to press it up a little bit also, just to level it out. So you see how that looks. Fits there perfectly. Now turn it to the side a little bit. There you go. Press it down. Voila. Looks good. I like it a lot. So temporarily install this. Don't glue it down, because we're going to put in this gear linkage right here. So once this gear linkage is on, just put it on the top. I went to put some glue there, but I realized bad idea, because I'm not gluing this down. So we attach the gear linkage, we'll let that set in place, and then we will yank this part out. That way we can get all inside of this wheel well here when it comes time to spring. So look at that. That's how that should look. We'll put our stabilizers in, or at least attempt it. If it doesn't fit, sand it down a little more, and then if that doesn't work, sand it down even more than that. That's basically it. And then you test fit it. We'll show you, just kind of got to jam these things in there the best you can. Don't get them stuck, because it's hard to get apart. And this is pretty much the conclusion of this video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like. This is what's coming up next. Painting the wheel wells, putting the fuselage, 2 halves together. The plane's starting to come together. Paint our wheels. You see me doing a little bit differently right here. And of course, clean up our canopy. Thanks for watching. Until next time, see ya.